Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Football Experience, brought to you by On the Pod. We're back 2 days after our last episode, so we're trying to get back into the schedule of going twice a week. You know, a review show and then a preview show, and then any other thoughts that we might have as well. Back with Caleb, obviously. So, how you doing today?
Oh, good, man. Excited to talk a bit about what we're going to maybe see in the upcoming weekend. And I know I mentioned to you before the show that I've watched the first two episodes of All or Nothing, so have a little discussion about what I saw in that, and then back on it for the second team. Finally, we're back on it. We'll go back into our look at the last 20 odd years of football and who we thought the standout players was. So, yeah, definitely excited. Good to be here.
Yeah, you sound like you have a little bit more energy, or a little bit more. What's the saying? Perk in your step, or whatever.
Pep in the step.
Pep in the
Although
step.
we can't say that as Liverpool supporters because
you don't want any pep.
Perk. We'll go Perk then.
Perk. I don't know where I pulled Perk from, but yeah, we'll go Perk for the Liverpool supporters. So what do you think of the All or Nothing? I know, like you said, you watched the first two episodes. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. It's well done as usual. It's always a pretty good product, the All or Nothings. They use some cool snippets, put it together nicely, look at it from different angles, like Ramsdale coming into the club and his family and stuff. So pretty all encompassing, but you got to understand it's a show at the end of the day. It's not a documentary, but yeah, it was interesting. Well, the first thing that strikes me, and I guess I would have already thought this going in, but just how cheesy Arteta is. He's so cheesy. But too cheesy. The methods he uses to motivate are so cheesy. Like the drawing before the North London derby of the heart and the brain together. I'm just like, that's so cheesy, but it seems to work for these players. So I think the surprising takeaway for me was it looks like he has really good man management with these players, and it looks like they respond to these methods, which I find incredibly cheesy, but they seem to get his point across, and the players seem to buy into it. So I thought it was fascinating. I was willing to be surprised by that because I know when we were talking off air after last week, you said that I said maybe like it'll give me more reasons to hate Arteta, and then you're like, well, maybe he'll bring you a bit more on side. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm on side yet, but I'm probably a bit closer to the middle, and especially when you see the results and how Arsenal are playing at the start of this season. I mean, if you couple it all together, then I don't know. It's interesting to see where his career goes from here, because like for me, it's not out of the realms of possibility that he might still be Brendan Rodgers, but I think I'm a bit more positive on him being better than that in the long run.
Well, just on the cheesy part, the thing is though, the considering the squad that he has, like it's such a young squad, so maybe he knows that this stuff will fire with them, because he was a pretty decent player. Like I did give him a little bit of praise. I think when we're doing when we're talking about the Spain midfield in the team of the best team of like the last 20 years or whatever, or the best players of the last 20 years, I mentioned that like even for a player like Arteta, he couldn't get into that Spain midfield, and he was a pretty good player, and I think I even mentioned that he was when he was going to get his call up, or when those talks that he was going to get his Spain call up, he had like a back injury or something like a serious back injury. So he played, he played in the Premier League, played at a high level, so he knows what works for some players and what works for some age groups, I guess. And look, maybe these things definitely wouldn't work with like last year's Real Madrid or this year's Real Madrid squad. I don't think it would work at all. Like it wouldn't fire with players like Benzema or Kroos or Modric and Courtois. Like those, I don't think those methods would work on them. But he'd probably then cater for that type of crowd, perhaps.
Yeah, it's a good point you bring up about the profile of the squad, particularly in this iteration of all or nothing, where it was last season and not this season. And then you touch on the point that it wouldn't work probably with this Real Madrid team, and I agree because those players are so experienced. That's not what they need. But it'll be interesting to see this season if they had the cameras in this season, how if he's going to use those methods. But because now he has two genuine Premier League champions in that change room with Zinchenko and Jesus. But the other thing to note as well is that he's already worked with those two at City. So I don't know. I don't know if that's a pro or a con. It's a pro in the sense that these players already know what he's about, but it's a con for me because they do know what he's about. So are you limiting the pool of talent that you could go for and what would be successful with Arteta? Because he seems to have that very much that sort of Guardiola about him without the reputation yet, in the sense that he wants to work with players who are still malleable and who he can still bend and be flexible to his ideas. For me, that's never the style of management that I enjoy watching, and the style of manager that, if I was in that profession, I'd want to be. I would want to be someone who could trust to give the players the right messages, but trust them to carry that out in their own individual ways, but always carry it out to their full ability. So for me, like personally, my preference isn't for that, but more and more you see more managers like that, and that's why I think like a Carlo Ancelotti for me is maybe the best manager of all time, definitely in the modern era. And we've had some really good managers, but his ability to sort of just get the right players in, get the right blend in that squad, but be a leader through letting his players flourish and letting them show themselves, is for me a personal favourite. But the results, if you go the other way, they can't be denied, because you look at someone like Guardiola, even Klopp. I think Klopp may be a little bit more flexible in terms of letting that character show on the pitch, but still very, I wouldn't say micromanagey, but around there. So yeah, the results that you see on both sides, it's just a personal preference thing for me, and that's probably why I find him a little bit cheesy.
Yeah, look, I think what you're saying, and like you can tell me if I'm wrong, but like Klopp and Guardiola, and it looks like Arteta as well, they build the system first, and then they put the players inside the system, and then they get the players for their system, rather than building a new system around the players, which is what Ancelotti has done in the past and has shown to do, like pretty much in every role that he's gone into, because he never plays the same way. Whereas Guardiola and Klopp, Klopp's pretty much playing the same way at Liverpool that he played at Dortmund, just with better players. Same with Guardiola, like pretty much exactly the same way at Barca, Bayern, and now City.
Well, I'll stop you. Just
there's
there,
obviously some differences, but
the thing, and this was a point I was going to make. On the flip side, on the same side as Arteta being very similar to Guardiola, is that Guardiola tactically has never been rigid like a Klopp. Klopp is unbelievably rigid. He cannot change the tactics ever, which sometimes I want to rip my hair out, because I just want him to change something when it's going wrong. But Guardiola, to his credit, I think will always throw in wrinkles, whether it be in a 4-3-3, or if he's going to play a 3 at the back or a 5 at the back, or if he's going to change the way that they rotate within a certain system. So, and I've seen that from Arteta. I think we touched on it last season, when that game where they went to Stamford Bridge, and they had been successful in the 4-2-3-1 all season, but then it just broke down a bit, and he decided to change to 3-4-3, and it worked for that game. So, and Guardiola can do the same things. And then you see Arsenal play this season, where I think he's utilising Zinchenko fantastically well, and Ben White as well, to allow Saka and Odegaard to link up on that side. So I think he does cater to the football characteristics of his players, but in terms of, I just would like to see more individual character be brought into games. The real the throwback sort of leaders. It's not the profile of an Ancelotti team to have. His profile would be to have those individual leaders who blend well and then show their own sort of character in terms of winning games on the pitch. Whereas Guardiola and Arteta is all about the football, which is great to watch sometimes, but sometimes it breaks down in those moments where you need, so to speak, a character. So yeah, I think you're all right with the first part, but it's a good thing for Arteta that I see that he is flexible like Guardiola in terms of tactics and the way they can play football to get the best out of their players.
Yeah, well, it's also something we've touched upon in the past where I think we've said that players are getting overtrained and they're getting and that's why there's probably a lack of characters these days and a lack of individuals. And there's more, and then I wouldn't really say robotic, but
in the younger age.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying. Like they're from a young age they're being taught to play in systems rather than individually show something different.
And even to go beyond that, they're being trained how to have pretty much the same techniques.
Yeah,
all from the same textbook. And I don't know. Ronaldinho, for example, was never a player out of a textbook. He'd never learn any of that from a textbook. So
you can name, you can pretty much name off like all of our, when we get into our teams of the past 2 decades, I'd say like pretty much every single player isn't textbook.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. I think when we go into our second team, so I'm looking at my second team now, and I probably have three maybe players out of that 11 that I would say are right out of a textbook in terms of the way they play football. So, like, here's the thing, and I guess it goes back into that point, but either side can have its results and either side can look beautiful to whoever's watching it, but it's just a personal preference thing. There's definitely benefits from either side and arguments why you would enjoy that more than the other for me. So it's not, I'm not standing on a hill trying to proclaim this. I'm just saying, for me personally, I like this, but other people like that, and they're just as sort of effective as each other.
Yeah, well, that's, I guess, modern football. And unfortunately, I think we've also said, like, modern footballers are probably they have become more athletes than actual footballers. You're required to, run. What do they use? 30 kilometers an hour or something. Like pretty much every footballer can run at that sort of pace. You obviously have like the standouts that can run, at like 35, 36, but and you need to be able to run, 10, 12 kilometers in a game. And I don't think that really existed like 30, 40 years ago. You relied on your skill rather than your athleticism.
And to probably put a cherry on top, but just to go one bit further, I think for that reason, objectively, not subjectively, objectively, football is at the highest level that it's ever been. But for us, preferentially, we'd probably both say, football was maybe more fun to watch around that 05-06 period. And then people of the generation before might say another 20 years before that. So, but I think objectively, when you bring in the fact that you've just pointed out, athletically, the players are at a complete new level and they can all play sort of from a textbook technically. Now your outstanding players are not only great athletes, but they always have that ability anyway. So, yeah, it's just the fact that nearly every player can play at some incredible, at least athletic level nowadays when they're playing at the top level. I think you got to say objectively, when you take that into account, the game hasn't been played at a higher level.
Yeah,
but for the eyes,
just on that athletic point, it's actually like interesting. I was on Twitter the other day, and just random stuff pops up on your timeline. there was a comparison video between, I think it was I'm not sure if there was an Olympics in 1912, but I think it was that. It was like gymnastics in the Olympics in 1912 versus gymnastics in 2012. Dude, there was like 100 years of like human development and like sports development and all that. It's night and day. Like you wouldn't even you'd call like what was shown in 1912 was what like it's not even, it's below amateur level gymnastics, and that was elite back then. Considering what we do now, like we're jumping higher, we're jumping further. They can do like. You know that one where they jump on the bar and then like they have to do the rotations and the flips and they're catching on the bar again. Like I think in 1912 they just do I don't think they were even doing full spins around the bar. Like they would just like jump on the bar, go back and forth a little bit, and then like do one somersault and then land. Like now they're like doing like somersaults on the and then landing back on the bar and all this stuff. Like.
Yeah, that stuff's nuts.
Yeah, like it's insane how much like 100 years of sports development has changed. And I guess that's the same with football as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good little example of what we were kind of talking about. And I guess we kind of got sidetracked.
Yeah, a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, like before the show, we said, "Oh yeah, we'll spend like we'll spend like half an hour in total, and like on I guess intro plus we're going to get into the Man United Liverpool game, considering there's no other big games, and then we'll get into the team of the year, and we've already spent almost 20 minutes just on I guess the intro itself. All right, so let's. I know we've talked about United and their problems and everything, and I guess this game with United Liverpool, it's probably the biggest game in the Premier League, in the Premier League calendar. I guess from a traditional standpoint, it is. Maybe not from a football standpoint. From a football standpoint, it's City Liverpool. But considering the narratives going around, so you got United playing at home. There's going to be a mass staged protest before the game. I think there's either going to be a stadium walkout or a complete stadium. It's not a ban, but what would it be? A protest where the players just don't take their. Oh, not players. Players should do it as well. But supporters don't take their seats as well. So there's like they want to create, I guess, an empty stadium. So imagine that, like the biggest game on the calendar for them. And in history context, and the stadium's like half empty. So
Madness.
And like for viewership, it's not good at all. So there's a lot going around before. There's a lot of like narratives going on before the game. I guess the other things are if United win, they go above Liverpool as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess from a mathematical standpoint, you can say Man United have a better chance of winning at this point, winning the Premier League than Liverpool, and Liverpool have a mathematically greater chance of being relegated, considering they'll be on 2 points and United on 3. So there's and also like for all the stick that Ten Hag has been getting, if he can get a 1-up on Klopp this early in his Premier League career, like what would that's like? What kind of messages would that send as well? Like there's a lot of clouds around this. So
that one depends on how he does it, because from the first 2 games, from what I've seen, it's been thoroughly unimpressive.
Well, what can he change? What can he change to get a result?
He needs to change his whole character, and he can't do that. So you can't. And it seems I've been listening to like the narratives and the reviews about what's gone down with United's first 2 games, whether it be the Sky Sports coverage or whether it be various podcasts. And it seems like there's two sides to, I guess, if you touch around the Ten Hag topic. And the sides are, well, the players aren't good enough. And then the other side, and I hear this one rarely, but this is always going to be my side. the manager is not catering to the players. And it is the manager's job to work for the players. It's not the other way around. For me, that's never the way I see it. The players are the ones who have to be on the pitch to perform. You have to give them the best opportunity to perform. And I don't see why there's so many like football hipsters and why we have such this idealistic view on football that no, you know what, he's got to stick to his principles. We've just got to get through this. We've got to play this way just because like in a few years we'll be good. You can still be good in the present moment or better, at least better than what they are, and build on that in the years. I don't see why you can't do that. The first thing you have to do is be competitive. And he just doesn't give those players a chance to be competitive. Now, yes, I can't put that all on him because these players, you can see it. They are bereft of confidence. They have hit absolute rock bottom. But how can you give them more confidence when you're asking them to play a style that just doesn't suit them? And case in point is David De Gea. Why are we asking him to play out from the back against Brentford? Why are we literally putting Martinez on the goal kick to pass it 3 yards sideways to De Gea, limit his options because Brentford have gone man-to-man, and then get annoyed when he passes it into Eriksen and makes the wrong decision? He's a damn goalkeeper, and he's never been a goalkeeper who's been good with his feet. Why are we asking him to do that? It blows my mind that a manager can be either so ill-prepared, like did he not know the job that he was coming into? Did he not know any of the players' characteristics when he came into the job? Did he not know that he would have to build a foundation of being competitive before he could even look at starting to look at the way they play with the ball? Because if they can't play without the ball, who cares if they can play with the ball? They're going to be 3-0 down before they even start. So to not understand the job, to not understand the league, thinking that Lisandro Martinez can be a top centre-back in this league at his height, and I know like there's two sides of that one as well. But for me, that one is just a no-brainer. In this league, in probably the most physical league, the most chaotic league in terms of patterns of play. You see in Spain and Italy, you can go long periods where there's a discerned pattern of play because a team can keep possession, the other team can look to sit in the shape. I think the Premier League, for me, would have the least amount of time that is done because I think the game's so vertical, so physical, and so chaotic that I just don't see a centre-back like that working out. Now, I'm not saying he's a bad player, but as a centre-back, as one of a two, no chance for me. So, and you see it, like we've talked about Maguire as well. I think he'd be better in a 3. He plays in a 3 for England. He looks all right in a 3 for England. So, again, it's just a manager who I think should be working for the players, and he doesn't seem to be working for the players at all. He seems to just be working for his ideas and his system and his rigidity. And who knows, in 2 or 3 years' time, maybe it's all worked out and they're one of the best sides in Europe. But as of now, I can't see it. And I hate the way that managers like that operate. It doesn't sit right with me.
You know, I saw a post that was actually praising Solskjaer because he managed to get wins over City. I'm not sure whether he beat or drew Liverpool at one point as well. Maybe in that season where Van Dijk was injured, because he did lose. Like I think United haven't beaten Liverpool in like the last 3 or 4 games, and they haven't scored in the last 3. But like apparently, like Solskjaer catered to the players in this squad, and this is pretty much the exact same squad that he had, except for the departures of like Matic and Pogba and Juan Mata. I'm not sure who else left as well, but they were basically praising him for managing this subpar squad and getting the best out of them. Whereas, we haven't seen anything.
Yeah. The thing I would say before you go on, just before you go on with the Solskjaer, the only thing I'd say. Okay,
but go on.
Yeah, with the Solskjaer one, I just think. Yeah, I thought that his style suited the players mostly, but then people want to say, but then when they tried to come out of that box and play football, they couldn't. Well, the thing I'd say about Solskjaer, he was never a proven manager anyway. Like, he was never that good a manager. He seemed to be like a decent guy who the players could play for. But in terms of anything sort of progressing the players, he was never the guy to do that. He was never going to, do a sort of what a Guardiola or even an Allegri or a Conte could do and show these players little things about the game that they hadn't already seen, for me. Like, that was the impression I got. So when you're saying, oh, if you play that way, you can't come out of that way. Well, I think a good manager could bring players like that out of one way and then start to transition them into playing a more dominant style. I dare you say you've seen it with Liverpool, to be quite honest.
One thing I will also add. I also heard that apparently he tried to sign Haaland like before he went to Borussia Dortmund, because I think he managed.
Yeah, the Mulder.
He has some.
I think it was the Mulder connection.
Yeah, he managed him at Mulder, and he's apparently very good friends with his parents as well.
Yeah.
And he tried to get United to sign him, and they didn't. Then they didn't go for him. And then like what happens? He develops at Borussia, and he then ends up signing for the city rivals. But so like we can obviously go into like the whole recruitment policy around United as well, because I think they've spent like what 1.2 billion since Ferguson left. I think. Or over the past, I'm not sure whether it's over the past 10 years since Ferguson left, but whatever it is. But like, so they've outspent every other team, like maybe 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, like all the other top teams, and they've gotten zero for it. And they're like, even Mourinho as well, like back when he was at United, I know Maguire was his signing, but I think he was like his second or third choice as a centre back. And then I think after seeing him, I think he said that he's not good enough. He said that Pogba doesn't work hard enough. He said that Luke Shaw isn't good enough either. He basically said like a bunch of players, and also called out the toxic atmosphere within the club as well. Like, it just wasn't up to the standards of, I guess, a winning team. And like and then I think even Ralph Rangnick as well. He said a bunch of stuff back from January. I think he said that they need to get rid of Ronaldo, otherwise, because he will cause problems. And look at the problems that are being caused at the start of the season now. Like, there's just all this air of instability and uncertainty around the team, and if you're trying to rebuild, it's not good. Like, look at what happened at for instance, Arsenal with the Aubameyang situation. They got him out as soon as they could have, and it seems to be the right choice as well. So I don't know what's happening at the club. Obviously, things behind off the pitch are then being, I guess, shown on the pitch as well. But at the end of the day, though, where's the pride of these players? I think we mentioned on the last podcast, like there's no sense of personal pride to battle, to do the hard yards, and to even try and win. So is it their mentality? Is it lack of quality? Like, what is it?
No, I think it's a little bit of everything, and obviously, me going in on Ten Hag like I have doesn't mean that these players are absolved of blame. I mean, they have to take as much blame, if not more, because they've been at the club longer. The thing about those managers who sort of lost their way, well, I guess Rangnick was only a one-way short-term fix anyway, but
now they've gotten rid of him. I
know, not even a consultant.
Yeah, he's not even a consultant anymore.
Yeah, but the way he went in on the club in public, I couldn't see him staying anyway, but that's neither here nor there. I guess the Mourinho one is the one I'm pointing to, and the thing that annoys me with that situation from the manager's perspective is you got to control what you can control, and what you can control is your playing squad. And they're the ones who go and perform. They're the ones who go and show sort of what you've been doing, how you can influence them, because that's the whole job of a manager. They sort of you got to take on what the manager's been telling you and show it on the pitch on the weekend. So to be distracted by that, even if what's going on above may not be the best, I just still think at a club like United, with the supposed talent that they're supposed to have and the amount of money that they've paid for them, like, surely you can get more out of them than that. Surely this whole pre-season, surely your focus was building some sort of resiliency, and we've seen absolutely none of it. But what we have seen is that they're trying to play out from the back, which is like, for me, your priorities are completely wrong. First thing is the mentality. You've got to work on that with the players, and then the next thing is the football.
Well, let's get into the game and what you predict. Firstly, like, what you predict how it will go, what the fallout may be based on the different results. Like, what happens if it's a Liverpool win? Like, what happens from the United perspective? What happens if it's a United win? What happens if it's a draw? Because the way I see it, considering the shambles that United are in, this is absolutely a must-win for Liverpool. Like, a draw is a loss for them. Like 3 points.
I'm guessing you're saying must win in terms of if they hope to challenge or win the title.
Not even that. Just everything that's going around with United. Like, they're probably the poorest over the opening 2 games. They are the poorest team. They're probably the worst team in the Premier League right now. And if they can't beat them, and if they manage to draw, like, what does that say about Liverpool, like, where they are? Because I know they also have, like, a little bit of doubts in the mid, like the injury doubts in the midfield. Like, they haven't signed any midfield players, have they? They have, and they haven't exactly replaced Mane with, like, a like for like or almost like for like replacement. They've signed Nunez, but I feel like he will be better maybe 1 or 2 years down the track. I know Diaz has hit the ground running, and he, from one perspective, he may have been a like-for-like replacement for Mane, almost a like-for-like replacement in terms of his tenacity and off-the-ball work rate. But yeah, like, how do you see things going based on the 3 different results that can happen?
I can't say any way that I see it going until I see the actual performance. Because, say, okay, there's one scenario that Manchester United they sort of get a bit more pragmatic. Ten Hag sets them up a bit more defensively, a bit more solidly, and they sit behind the ball and they maybe win 1-0. In terms of for what it means for Liverpool, the result in itself, I think, means the title would be 90% gone. It's hard to say that after 3 games. I mean, it's really hard. But if City were to put in another impressive performance against what will be their toughest test this weekend in Newcastle, and if they can win that game convincingly, and Liverpool are floundering on 2 points while City are on 9 points, I mean, that's about as bad a start as you can get. And to win the title from there will indicate that we're not gonna have a title race like we've had in previous seasons. We're not gonna have a dominant team. We're gonna have teams losing, and I think that would also mean that Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham will all be in that race as well. So that could be exciting. But if City continue to just play like they are, and Liverpool can't get a win in this game, the result alone means a lot for any title challenge. And I think Liverpool start looking maybe at, well, they've got to look at firstly top 4 anyway. But yeah, so the result-wise, but if they lose that game, do I think Liverpool are in crisis? Because probably not, because that can happen. I mean, we saw it against Palace. Things go against you. You only draw the game 1-1. If a team plays like that, then you're always susceptible to not being able to break it down and drawing or losing the game. That can just happen. It doesn't mean you're in crisis. It doesn't even mean you played badly. It just means the ball didn't go in the back of the net and maybe they capitalise on their chance. And one thing we know about Liverpool is they'll give up chances. So it'll be interesting to see who the centre-backs are for that game, because obviously, as much as I love him, you're a little bit worried if Nat Phillips is on the team sheet again. So But in terms of the result, it has to be. And now, but this is like the more unlikely one is that United come out and they blitz Liverpool and they play fantastically well and they win. I mean, do any of us realistically see that happening? Not really. It would be amazing. I would be amazed if they could win the game in that way, to be quite honest. But I think Liverpool are definitely not at full strength. Nunes getting suspended doesn't help the forward line in particular. We've touched on the midfield, touched on the defence as well. So, if United do go in maybe a bit more pragmatic, there's every chance that they could get a result from this game because Liverpool definitely haven't hit the gears and haven't hit the heights and, are definitely already on the back foot in terms of winning a title. So, but I have to see the game and then there's takeaways. Otherwise, it's just pure speculation at this point because the game can go so many different ways for either of those results.
The only thing is though, like, where does the threat come from United? So like, obviously you'll be like, oh, Ronaldo, but if he doesn't get any service, he's not going to do anything. And we saw that against Brentford. He did nothing. We saw that against Brighton as well. Like, and that midfield of Fred and McTominay, and is there anyone else who can play in that midfield? And Eriksen as well. Like, they're just going to get overrun by Henderson and Fabinho.
Did you see the news though? And it's not news; it hasn't happened. But
Casemiro.
Apparently United are getting Casemiro. What's that? What has gone on there?
I think that's a Ronaldo connection. Apparently,
that's amazing. If they get Casemiro, that's just ridiculous. Especially after missing out on De Jong and even Rabiot, and then they get the guy who I had. I can't remember if you had him in your first team, but I had him in my first team as the holding midfielder last year. That would just be ridiculous.
But
but it hasn't happened, and we only need to look at the Bernardo Silva case to know nothing is done until it's done, because everyone thought he was going to Barca, and now it seems to have cooled off, and then maybe he'll pick up again. So
I'm just not sure how that happens. Like, why would Casemiro? Why would he leave? Like,
why would he?
Like, he's leaving a team that, like, you'd say that Real Madrid could again potentially win the Champions League.
Yeah,
they could.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, because they seem to have reinforced their squad with a little bit of young talent, and the team, it's like the starting 11 is still one of the best in Europe. Casemiro's only like 30 as well, isn't he? So like he's in his prime. Why would he go from a team that can potentially win the Champions League again to a team that isn't even playing in the Champions League, that's playing in the Europa League?
Apparently they're doubling his salary. And I guess when you have five of those trophies with big ears, you can kind of say, all right, I'm go done for the money. Exactly.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you're going to go for the money, you may as well go to Saudi Arabia for a year and get paid $1 million a week. Like,
well, at least we get to see him play, but probably not, because that's the graveyard United. I'm with you. I seriously, I was flabbergasted at seeing how close to final that was.
I did see that. Apparently, it's the whole Ronaldo connection. Apparently, and Varane as well. But like that would be a great signing for them. It would be.
That would be.
It would be an awesome signing because it would give more freedom to Eriksen as well to play just in front or even alongside.
And Fernandes even.
And Bruno, yeah. So, and they've been lacking a defensive mid for I don't know how long, like the past 5-6 years.
The only thing it doesn't solve is who's still picking up the ball in midfield, because he's never been one to want the ball in the tighter areas.
Eriksen,
in fact,
maybe.
Real Madrid. Yeah, that's the only way I see it, but that's a little bit dangerous in those bigger games or more physical games where you need maybe a proper number 8 next to him, like a Frankie de Jong, who would be fantastic for them as well.
It would be crazy. Like if he'll say like 34 or 35, and he just wants to go there for the last year or two of his career. Sure, like I can see that happening, but at 30, I don't like. He's our age. Like if I had the pick of, even if I had 5 Champions League titles to my name, if I had if I had like a guaranteed another guaranteed La Liga title to my name, I'd be like, well, I'm taking that, and a potential another potential Champions League title. I'll take that as well. But I don't know, money can sway a lot of heads, I suppose.
Well, when you've won as much as he has, I guess. But
yeah,
I guess going back to your point, where do you see the threat?
Yeah,
you don't really see that much threat. I guess it's Rashford for the pace, but he always makes terrible decisions in the final third. It's Ronaldo for the finishing if they are able to get him one chance. It's Sancho if he decides to turn up for a game, or Bruno if he can link up with Ronaldo. So, it only takes one moment in a game, and if you can defend well enough, then you can win a game 1-0. Can United defend well enough? Well,
I can't see it.
That's the part. Yeah, that's the part that we need to see. And the only way I see it happening is if Ten Hag changes his ways, which I don't think will happen, but we'll see.
So, what's your prediction in terms of scoreline?
I hate predictions.
What do you think?
I don't know. I'll predict the game, and I'll predict that Liverpool will be the dominant team, even at Old Trafford. I'll predict that the boycott won't be as bad as we were fearing, but it'll be interesting to see if it is. I think there'll be a few empty seats, but I don't think it'll be like playing in front of an empty stadium or anything like that.
I think I think Arsenal did that for one of their games
against City a couple of years back.
Yeah, and like it looked horrible. Like
but that was made worse because I think that night it was like really snowy.
Yeah,
so no one could get to the stadium or anything. So I think the people who are going to come were just like, nah, I'm not going to do it anyway.
Well, let's hope it snows in August.
But yeah, I'm not going to give a score because I'm too invested in this game, and I don't want to tempt the gods. So I'll leave that to you.
Look, I like I said, I can't see where the threat comes from. I can't see how United win a midfield battle. I can't see Rashford isn't as productive on the counter or threatening on the counter as a Luis Zaha. So I can't see him causing any threat, even if they sit in a low block like Wilfred. Yeah, look. I don't know. Well, you know what? He's less threatening than Luis Zaha as well. United should maybe bring him back.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, Willie. And Ronaldo doesn't have the lightning pace that he has anymore. I can't see them getting any crosses into the box that utilize his aerial threat.
You're just piling on United. United fans are
I'm just like in my mind. I'm just looking at it like those positions on the pitch, and even if they sit in a low block, who counters for them and causes a threat? I can't see it. I can't visualize it.
At least Rashford's quick.
Yeah,
Ronaldo's used to playing that way as well, so if he ggets a chance.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just can't see it, and I can't see them winning the midfield battle at all. I'm predicting a 3-0 for Liverpool, and I reckon Salah finds some form and gets 2 for himself.
Godspeed.
Yeah. Hey, is who's going to play in the middle? Is Jota back, or I'm guessing Firmino?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Jota's back. I think the word on him was Everton, Everton game. So okay. I think I haven't heard any updates on Firmino though, but hopefully he's fit. Otherwise, I don't know. Maybe it'll be a Salah and someone will fill in the wing.
Well, he played. He played preseason, so like Firmino he looked fine in preseason. I don't think there was any injuries.
Yeah, I think he might have picked up something against Fulham or something.
We
didn't. Yeah,
I will also give a shout out to Harvey Elliott. I reckon he was fantastic against Crystal Palace, and
he's a good player.
He really impressed me against Crystal Palace, and he looked very threatening. He was making those forward runs into the box and everything, and if he plays again, he's gonna I can't. I don't like how are United going to deal with him, let alone like Salah and Diaz. So
Yeah, and don't forget, Harvey Elliott was starting last season before he picked up that injury at Leeds. So
yeah,
Klopp obviously likes what he's seeing, and
I like what I'm seeing.
hopefully, yeah, and hopefully that rehab has been good and there's no complications, and because he looks like a really promising young player.
Yeah, he definitely looks a very good player. So you know what? I reckon he might grab a goal. So Salah with 2 goals and Harvey Elliott with 1. If Harvey Elliott starts, if he
Love that. That's an
yeah,
in-depth prediction.
I reckon I can see it being a 3-0. But you know what? As much as I can see it being a 3-0, if I can also see it being a 5-0. So I'm going for the more conservative approach because you would hope that United are a little bit more pragmatic and they can keep a clean sheet up until like the 30th minute, but then the floodgates will sort of go on. But if Liverpool get an early goal like they have like the last 2 or 3 times that they've faced United, it's pretty much going to be like Brentford all over again, I reckon. So, but yeah, I'm going for the 3-0. Salah with 2, Harvey Elliott with 1. If Harvey Elliott starts,
Here's hoping.
yeah. So, all right, that's the United Liverpool game done and dusted. I hope we've gone through enough detail. If anyone disagrees with our hypothesis or analysis, then I don't know. You can comment, and then we'll get into one of those keyboard wars in the comment section. But
Yeah, that'll be with Nev, not with me. All our listeners.
I think you need to start doing a little bit of heavy lifting on that end. Before we go into our teams of the last 20, or our team 2, we're not going to do team 1, but our team 2. We're just going to run through the other 5 games consisting of the top 6 teams, and just give it like a 1-paragraph thought on how the game will go, and I guess not necessarily the scoreline, but if you want to give a scoreline, you can. Caleb, I know you don't like doing that, but the result. So Tottenham Wolves.
Well, I haven't seen Wolves yet this season, so it'll be interesting to see what they're like. Tottenham, I guess, just need to play better, maybe show a good performance. Maybe this is the time if they can actually put in a good performance. I know they've been scoring enough to get by, but I wasn't impressed against Southampton, and I definitely wasn't impressed against Chelsea. So this is the kind of game where you're hoping that they can play some sort of impressive game and get themselves a win. But I still, even if they're not impressive, I still see them winning the game.
Yeah, I can see they're playing at home. It's the early game as well. It's the midday kickoff. Look, you'd expect a Tottenham win, but I think I'm going to go for how did Wolves go? They got draw and they lost 2-1 away to Leeds. I'm going to go 1-1 draw for that one. I think that will be a draw, just because it's an early kickoff and sometimes players can't really. Sometimes those games can be very lackluster. So
yeah.
The next one on the list, Arsenal Bournemouth. The one thing that I'm a little bit afraid of is that and this happened. I noticed this a couple of times last season where like a team would get an absolute drubbing, and then the next week they'd just be like, "Nah, we're sitting with 2 banks of 4. We're sitting deep, and we're just not going to concede." And considering Bournemouth shipped 4 against City last week, I think it happened last year with especially Southampton. I think Southampton lost like 5-0 or 6-0 to Chelsea or something like that. And then they beat us 1-0 the following week when they played at home. So that's the one thing I'm a little bit afraid of with this game, is that Bournemouth playing at home and they just shipped 4 against City. So they're just going to like sit back and absorb all the pressure. Now, having said that, I I can't see us scoring 4. I can see us getting. I can see this as a 2-0 win for Arsenal if we play with the same. If we come out and play with the same intensity from minute 1 that we have over the last 2 games, then I can see us getting at least 2 goals. So I'm predicting a 2-0 for that one.
You said Bournemouth were at home.
Yes, and it's a 6:30 kickoff, so it's a bit of a night game.
Yeah, I'm hoping Bournemouth can give Arsenal a bit of a physical challenge, and let's see how they respond to that, because I don't think Leicester did that at all. And then Palace, I guess they do a little bit, but they like to sit a bit. It'll be interesting to see, because we remember Bournemouth at home under Eddie Howe, and they would take the game to teams. It'll be interesting to see whether it goes as you hypothesized, that they're a bit scarred after last week and they sit a little bit, or if whether they're at home and they think that they can maybe expose something there in the Arsenal team in terms of physicality, then maybe they really go for it. So I'm hoping the game goes more that way than them sitting back, and I'm hoping Arsenal get a bit of a challenge, but I fully expect Arsenal to win this game, judging by what we've seen from the first 2 weeks, because they've been one of probably the second most impressive team of the first 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I agree with that. They've definitely played. They've played like in that sort of City style, but like I think they've been a little bit more impressive than City, because they're more direct, whereas City seem to try to play it around and expose gaps. So they've been a little bit more exciting than City, but they're trying to get to that level. So yeah, hopefully they can get the win and pick up maximum points. Chelsea Leeds at Leeds.
I'm interested to see how this one unfolds, how much Leeds come out. I think Leeds will come out at home. I think Jesse Marsh will want to press, not necessarily possess the ball, but probably press Chelsea, make the game a little bit chaotic, a little bit vertical. So I guess the thing you're looking for, if the game does unfold that way, is whether Chelsea can take their chances without that recognised striker in the team. So that's my big question mark. That's definitely what I'm looking for. But Chelsea were super impressive against Tottenham. Sort of somewhat set my mind at ease in terms of how they're going to go in this season, I think. But it's only 2 games in, so that can all flip. It's football. That changes real quick. But if Chelsea perform in the same sort of controlled way they did against Tottenham, and they can control the game like that, then you fully expect them to at least take 1 or 2 of the chances they create and win the game. And that's what I expect to see. I expect to see them win the game. But it'll be interesting to see if they do take those chances without the number 9.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, where are they going to get the goals from? Like, I know Sterling he has a pretty decent goal scoring record. Havertz can pop up with a goal as well. I don't really see this being a high scoring game. I can see it being like a 2-1 or a 3-1 for Chelsea. I think just because Leeds are playing at home, I think they can get a goal, and the way they play as well. But I expect Chelsea to come out a little bit more fired up, considering they were hard done by last weekend. Well, you would hope that they will come out like fired up after what happened last weekend. So yeah, Chelsea win 2-1, 3-1, something like that. And the last game, I reckon this could be a very exciting game. Newcastle at home to City.
Yeah, like I said before, I think this is City's biggest challenge, especially going to St James's Park. Newcastle have been pretty impressive so far this season. But, they played Brighton last week, and those 2 teams cancelled each other out. So while they've been impressive, they're maybe not the front runner out of the contenders to challenge for the top 6, but they're right there with probably Brighton for me. And again, I know it's only 2 weeks in, but we're just going off what we see. Do I think they have enough to nullify City and what City can do now with Haaland and what City can just do in general? De Bruyne is still on top of his game. I mean, I don't know. I don't have to wax lyrical about City. Everyone knows how good they are and how well they've started the season. So I'm interested to see if they start Botman at the back. I want to see him in this test against Haaland, see how he goes, see if he is the sort of cornerstone centre back that you'd want to start this project for Newcastle. Joelinton's been mighty impressive again. Guimaraes has been fantastic in that midfield. And then for the whole season in general, not just specifically this game, but well, in this game specifically, in fact, Sam Maximan and Almiron are just going to have to be clinical like they aren't really in general. If they can make the right decisions in the final third when they do eventually get out and counter, and if they can be clinical in those moments, then maybe we have a game. But if they sort of are what they are, and they need to add that to their games because the raw potential is there for both of them, but they're just not the decision making and the finishing and just the clinical sort of nature in that final third is not there for either of them. So they're going to have to play above their level and above expectations in those departments. If they can do that, we have a game. If not, City will win. And even if they do that, I still expect City to win because City are just fantastic.
I don't expect a drubbing, just because Newcastle have
me neither.
They've been pretty solid, and considering they're playing at home, and the whole city is backing them now. Like, and like there seems to be a very, very good atmosphere around the stadium now. I still see City coming away with the results. So I can't see Newcastle. I can't see them scoring, to be honest. And Newcastle and City haven't conceded in the first two games either. So they've been very solid. I'd go a 2-0 or 3-0 for City in this one. So those are my predictions. Those are your predictions. Pretty much we agree on all of them, except for the Tottenham.
Results,
I think at least for the Tottenham one, because I said I wouldn't be surprised with a draw. I think I even predicted a 1-1 draw in that one.
Yeah, but maybe that's a bit of wishful thinking from the Arsenal supporter on the pod.
Yeah, but I think didn't Wolves have like the best defensive record last season?
I'm winding you up, mate.
Yeah.
But they have lost Connor Cody to that as well, and they might be doing the Nuno thing where they go away from the system that was so good for them last season and they try to change to a back four. And if they do that, I don't know how well it's going to work out for them.
Yeah, well,
that's my fear for Wolves.
I guess we'll have to see. I get it is a little bit of wishful thinking, but like I said, I wouldn't be surprised with the draw just because it is against Wolves. They have been pretty solid defensively, at least going off of last season. And it is an early kickoff as well, and sometimes players can be a little bit lackluster for those kickoffs. So, yeah, that's the wrap up or the preview, of the preview for the Premier League. I guess it's finally time for us to get into our second team of the last 20 years. So, with that being all said, now we're going to do a quick recap of our third team, and then we'll jump into our third team. So I'm just quickly going to go through my third team. Caleb, do you go through yours, and then I'm going to hand it to you to go through your second as well. So with my team 3, I had Mourinho as the coach, Peter Cech in goal, Cafu at right back, PK and Vidic as my centre backs, Marcelo as my left back, Bale as my right mid, Lampard and Xabi Alonso as my 2 centre midfield pairings, and Giggs on left mid. And I had Kaka as like a bit of an attacking mid or a second striker behind David Villa. So that is my team 3. Caleb, yours?
And I believe I had Klopp in the end as manager. And then after much deliberation, which the third team was the hardest one for me to pick, I had Buffon in goal. I had Zanetti at right back. Rio Ferdinand and Chiellini as the two centre backs, Jordi Alba as the left back, Gerrard and Pirlo sort of anchoring the midfield in a 4-2-2-2 with Muller and Ronaldinho just playing ahead of them, and Aguero and Benzema as the two strikers. And like I said, this one was the hardest one for me to pick because I think the first and second team kind of picked themselves when you got down to it. For me, they did anyway. I was thinking maybe instead of me doing my whole team so that we break it up a little bit, how about we go position for position?
I'm open to that idea. All right.
Yeah, let's do that. So I'll start with my goalkeeper,
All right.
who I picked in the second team. So unlike the third team, I didn't really have. I guess that pod was a while ago, but I spoke about how I had players sort of who cancelled out other players so that they got into the team, and there was debates all throughout my third team of who to choose. I have one sort of semi-debate in the second team, but apart from that, the rest was pretty easy to pick. So my goalkeeper in the second team was Iker Casillas, La Liga champion 3 times in 07, in 08 and 2012. And then there for the first Champions League title in 14, La Decima for them, which obviously for sort of a homegrown goalkeeper who'd been there for so long must have been really special for him to be there for that. Then towards the end of his career, he gets a Primeira Liga title with Porto as well. So I know it's the Portuguese league, but still doing it across 2 leagues, getting league titles is no mean feat. And then the big argument has to be his time with Spain and that magical Spanish run, which that Spanish team still remains probably the best national team we've seen, or I've seen in my time of intensely watching football. I guess a little bit before my time, you'd put that French team that won the 2000 Euro and the 98 World Cup. And then you'd I don't know, you'd be hard pressed to put any other team sort of in that bracket. No one else has won both the Continental Trophy and the World Cup sort of back to back like that. I know the French came close in 16 and then won the World Cup in 18. So, and obviously that German team around the 2014, that World Cup winning side was awesome in its own right, sort of building up to that from the 2010 World Cup as well. But yeah, that tie with Spain pushes him over the edge and puts him as for me, the second choice goalkeeper of the since the start of the 04-05 season. Obviously 2 Euros, 08 and 12, and then the World Cup in 2010. And individually, he has a Golden Glove from the World Cup in 2010, and he also has his FIFA Pro World 11 from 08 to 2012. He made it. Or that might have been just 08 and 2012. I'd have to fact check that. But individually, he makes the FIFA Pro teams, World Cup Golden Glove. And yeah, for me, pretty clearly on those honours and being such a key part in all those teams. Even though I know in that 2014 UCL title, he wasn't the goalkeeper in the league games, I'm pretty sure. So, but he was still goalkeeper in the Champions League games. So, yeah, for me, pretty clearly second choice goalkeeper of the last 18 years for mine.
Well, you just made things super easy because I had him as my as my goalkeeper for the second team as well. So we could we could pretty much move right on to right back then. Should I take the reins on that one? So
yeah, you take it. Yeah.
Look, for right back for team 2, I've gone with Philipp Lahm. Just all of his titles that he's won with Bayern Munich. He was Bayern Munich captain. I believe he was Germany captain as well, if I'm not mistaken. Won the World Cup with Germany. I think that Germany team as well, like they made deep runs in pretty much every tournament. So in Euro 08 they got to the final, if I'm not mistaken. They lost out to Spain. Then they make the semi-finals in 2010 in the World Cup. And then I think they got beat by Italy in the 2012 Euros, right? No, but that was was that in the semis or the quarterfinals? But again,
Feel
like,
like
yeah.
yeah, I want to say the quarters.
Yeah, I want to say quarters as well because didn't Balotelli get like those 2 goals against them? Yeah, let me just. I just want to quickly have a look at that.
I
So
check.
yeah, I wanna see quarterfinals. No,
Oh,
it was the semis. They lost to Italy 2-1. But it was only a consolation goal that Germany got. So they made the semi. So they made final in '08 in the Euro '08, semi-finals in World Cup, another semi-finals in the next Euros, and then they win the World Cup in 2014.
and don't forget they made the semis in '06, and Lam was a big part of that team
Yeah,
scoring the opening goal of that tournament.
yeah, like, and he's been like an absolute mainstay in that right back position, and he would be a very very decent shout for the first team, but I think that and I guess his international honors should probably push him ahead of who I had in for right back in my first team, but I'm also going off of the eye test as well, and I guess that's what sort of pushed my first choice right back ahead of Lahm, but Lahm could just as easily be in the first team. And if he's not in your second team, I'm assuming I'm going to ruin it. I'm assuming he's in your first team. So
I was
I'm
just about to
predicting
say
that.
the only interesting thing will be if there's any curveballs in this second team, because for me, the way it's shaping up, it looks like if we're not aligned on the second team, then there's a very obvious other one who is in the first team, and
Yeah.
that's the what the case is here. But I haven't gone for the same.
If you're
I
right, hang on,
have
hang on. If you're right back is who I have in my first team, then yeah, we just pretty much flip the script. But I think for first team and second team, the right backs are coin flips. If you have my first team right back,
and I'm gonna put my mortgage on the fact that you had Dani Alves in your first team.
yep.
Exactly, because I have him on my second team. So it was a coin flip, as you say. I think it's well established now that and you see it in all those little clickbait things, but he is the most decorated player, I think, of all time. I think I might be
Yes.
right in
Yeah.
saying that. Yeah. Just an incredible career. The longevity, the fact that he could transfer his skill sets to different situations and different countries. I'm always a big admirer of that. 2 UEFA Cups for Sevilla to start it all. Gets his move to Barca, wins 6 La Liga titles there, 3 Champions League titles there as well. And then sort of becomes somewhat of a journeyman, but only a journeyman to the top clubs after that. And goes off to Juve, wins a Serie A title in 2017. PSG back-to-back Liga and titles in 18 and 19. And then a sort of nice little book endings to the career, or to the peak of him, which is a very long peak, might I add, in terms of for Brazil winning a Copa America in 2007 and 2019, and in that 2019 tournament being named player of the tournament, which is quite incredible given the age. He must have been mid-30s by that point easily. So to be the best player of such a big continental tournament like that is incredible. The 4th most FIFA Pro appearances with 8, 09, and then 11 through to 13, and 15 through to 18 again. So, like you say, a coin flip. Could have easily had him as first team, but I went for the guy you had as second team in the first team. And I guess
I'm
we'll
guessing
touch
that it
on that
was.
a bit.
I'm guessing that it was only the international tournament or the World Cup, pretty much, that pipped Lahm ahead for you, because Dani Alves doesn't have a World Cup.
Yeah, a World Cup is massive, but I would probably say eye test for me as well. I think I preferred watching the supreme intelligence of Philip Lahm, and that's not to say that Dani Alves is not supremely intelligent, but for me there was just a little bit in that, as there would be for any of these. We're talking about first and second best players in their position over the last 20 odd years. So when I say there's a little difference, I mean it's a little. It's minuscule, but yeah, for me, I preferred watching Lam. I thought, I liked how he was fantastic at right back, and then he was fantastic in central midfield later in his career, and just supremely intelligent footballer, and obviously great leader as well because he was
Yeah,
captain
yeah.
of that Germany team and those Bayern teams, and that Bayern team under Guardiola maybe doesn't get all the praise maybe it should because it never broke through and won the Champions League, but that team was fantastic. Probably my favorite Guardiola teams to watch out of any of the three clubs that he's been at.
Yeah, I think with Lam and Daniel was like they're very different types of right backs. Like Daniel is that sort of traditional bombarding Brazilian right back for him, but like and a left back like a Roberto Carlos. But like they're very, and like Maicon as well is a decent shout because but Maicon had a very short peak, whereas Daniel was
more,
but like
he was more of that guy who got up and down and was a bit more physical. See, the thing for me, Dani Alves early in career, he was that up and down,
yeah,
bombarding sort of winger. But as he got later, you could see this guy could easily play in central midfield too if he wanted to. He had the
yeah.
skill set. And once he got that experience, he could have done that as well. So
Well,
we just never got to see it really.
well
Not
for
that much
for
anyway.
Barcelona, like he was generally utilized as like a right midfield, and he would sort of start. If you go back and now think about it in hindsight, he sort of started that. I guess you could say that Guardiola started experimenting with the right back coming a little bit inside with Dani Alves, because you did see him start to because initially Messi played on the right, but he'd always drift on the inside, so it would leave so much space over there on that side. But so he wasn't always providing. He would provide the width, but he would also come inside a little bit as well because they were so far forward. So I guess you could say that it was the early development of what Guardiola wanted to start in his football transition, or like in his philosophy or ideology. So yeah, you could sort of look at it that way, I guess, in hindsight. Okay, so we both pretty much had coin flips to our right back. Should we go centre back partnership or go one centre back each?
Do the whole partnership for us.
Well, I've revealed my right back first, so it's only fair that you reveal your partnership first.
Well, my partnership that I went for, and this is maybe the only curveball I think that will be in there, because I've gone for John Terry, obvious, but I've gone for Jerome Boateng next to him.
What?
I've gone for Jerome Boateng. I thought he was absolutely fantastic in the last. Probably the last decade, because I'll go through him first. 9 times league champion, gets there for when Bayern regained the title off Dortmund, and then is an integral part in the next 9 that they rattle off in a row. 2 times Champions League winner. Again, he comes in there, first season at the club. He's a mainstay in that team that wins the Champions League in 2013. And then again, I know he got injured in the final and he had to be replaced, but he was the key centre back for them when they won the title, the Champions League again in 2020. And then as a World Cup on top of that, one of 2 of the main centre backs in that World Cup winning time in 2014. Germany Footballer of the Year in 2016. Really had different sort of phases to his career. He sort of started as this guy that you saw at City, also was a part of the City team that won the FA Cup, which was their first major trophy under the new regime and the new era of Manchester City. So I don't think that can be discounted in itself. But sort of had this different phases of himself. He was sort of that physical guy that you'd expect him to be. When he first came in, and then he had the opportunity to work under fantastic managers in Heinkes initially at Bayern, who sort of helped develop him to be sort of more reliable, because I think we all would have thought that him leaving City to go to Bayern, we weren't really that impressed with him at City. He didn't really become the player that we maybe thought he could, but then under Heinkes got those kind of performances out of him. And then he got to work under Guardiola, who developed him even further. He became a pretty reliable ball playing centre back, despite probably what your your notions about him would be. I always thought he was pretty dependable on the ball. He does have that horror moment at the new camp where Messi sits him down, but Messi sits a lot of guys down, so I wouldn't take that too personally. And such a solid, such a physical centre back, and such a big part of so many great teams in the last decade. So I couldn't leave him out. The only sort of discussion that you could have would be between him and Mats Hummels, his centre back partner for the 2014 World Cup. Stylistically, I think to the eye, I think most people would prefer Hummels. That range of passing, the type of passing that he can have out of centre back is really a joy to watch. But I just think the fact that Hummels never won a Champions League and the fact that Boateng has two under two different managers, played through different regimes or different managers at Bayern, and was always pretty much a mainstay in anything they were doing in that time, just tipped him over the edge for me. Even though Hummels does have the two Bundesliga titles under Klopp at Dortmund, which are very impressive feats in their own right.
Yeah, for me, it's a little bit of a surprise pick, to be honest, because I think that there's four, well, considering the first team as well, there's four centre backs that are, for me, and then eye test as well, that are just better. I know that he has obviously like the accomplishments, but that's a surprise one for me. Who's your other? Who's his partner in that?
Well, before I go on, I have John Terry there. Do you have him in your second team?
No, I don't.
You have him?
I have him, but
no, you have him in. Yeah, you have him in your first team. Then.
Yeah.
So I'll just go through the accomplishments, and then maybe I'll leave more of the description and the deeper look into it when we do the first team. But in terms of accomplishment, 5 Premier League titles, ranging from 05 to, you can put in 2017, but he wasn't really a big part of that team. But even the fact that he has 05 till 2015, where in 2015 he maybe has one of his peak seasons under Mourinho in terms of he plays all 38 league games that season, which is a pretty incredible accomplishment for someone who was getting on in years come that season and being such a the cornerstone, you could probably say, of that team. And that Mourinho Chelsea team was mighty impressive. Champions League title in 2012, although we all know the story, didn't play in that final. We also know the story of the runner-up in the Champions League in 08, where he slips and misses the pivotal penalty, which I guess people who weren't fans of Chelsea were kind of rejoicing in, but looking back on it, he somewhat deserves that. But who could deny that United team of 08 as well? PFA Player of the Year in 2005 and 5 FIFA Pro selections from 05 through to 09. So no-brainer, definitely had to probably be. The only thing he's missing, obviously, is international success, which is a problem of any of those players for England. But being a part of those Chelsea sides, particularly 05, 06, where they were built on defence, so in many ways they were built on him, and obviously Petr Cech, who I think you had in your third team. But somewhat a no-brainer, even despite the lack of international success.
Yeah, see, the thing is with me, I'm not... England have just been so poor internationally for a while, despite having great players. Now you hear like these interviews that like those players gave, like Lampard, Gerrard, Ferdinand, Terry, like they all said that there was that they didn't have that team cohesion that the current England squad has. Like there was that rivalry because you had the Chelsea Man United rivalry or the Arsenal United rivalry and Liverpool United. Like sometimes there would be cliques within the teams, and that would cause a disruption. And then you also had the Spain domination over 6 years, also 6 years from 08 to 12. So like no one's winning anything there. And then there's so many other great international teams because international is only 4 years. I know it's such a big thing to win. I'm not holding it against certain players. And but then on the other hand, because England is such a big nation footballing wise compared to Croatia, maybe you can hold it against them, considering they have at some points they have potentially 11 of the world's greatest players in their team. Maybe not they're not all number one in the world, but they're maybe number 3, number 4, number 5 in their positions. But yeah, look,
I will just say before you go on that if he had either a Euros or a World Cup, then he would have a legitimate argument to be in the first team. But for me, I couldn't, because of that lack of international success. I couldn't put him above the 2 that I had in the first team.
That's fine, and I can guess who the 2 in your first team are. But with my team 2 partnership, I have Puyol and Ferdinand. And I guess with me, I think I'm probably putting eye test more ahead of honors, I suppose. Puyol could have been obviously a shout for first team because he was an absolute dog of a defender. He'd give his life to win a ball. It seemed at times because he was that sort of style of player and personality. And I'm guessing he's in your first team, but the honors that he has, I know he missed out on that 2012 Euro through injury, but he has 2 Champions Leagues to his name. I think he was the captain. He was the captain of Barcelona of that whole 3.
Yeah. 06, 09, and 11.
Yeah. So he has 3 Champions Leagues. I think he was the secondary captain to Spain behind Casillas. So he obviously had that leadership role within the team as well. So he's a natural born leader. So 3 Champions Leagues. How many La Ligas does he have? You must have
six league titles.
I was gonna say 6 or 7. And just eye test as well. I think that type of defender is lacking these days, and that sort of goes back to maybe our intro where players are lacking that sort of personality or the character, and Puyol was definitely a character, and like I said, he'd give his life to win a ball.
Yeah, love it, and he's in my first team.
Yeah,
so
and Ferdinand as well. It's you don't really need to go through that. Him and Vidic. You can even make an argument Ferdinand alongside Terry, probably one of the best Premier League defenders. You obviously you can also put Sol Campbell in there, but he came before then. Depending on how the current crop of talent goes, Van Dijk and all that, Van Dijk could obviously make a stake for that title, depending on how long he stays in the Premier League as well, and and if he can win a couple more titles as well, that would help his cause, because Ferdinand is a multiple Premier League winner. How many does he have to his name? He would have more than Terry, wouldn't he? He has less than Terry.
Yeah. Same amount. But Terry's last one was, he only made 9 appearances in 16-17 under Conte.
Okay. Well,
so it's a half time.
Yeah.
But his influence was still in the dressing room and everything like that. Yeah.
And I think Ferdinand, from memory, he was pretty tidy on the ball, and he was I guess that ball playing centre back, and I guess
next to Vidic.
Yeah, and I guess it was showing that sort of transition that football was heading towards, of the ball playing centre back, not just the hoof it out of their centre back. So yeah, he definitely, if he could have been a shout for the first team, just based on eye test, but the 2 that I have are definitely ahead of them for me personally. So, and obviously we'll go through that in another episode. But yeah, that's my partnership, Puyol and Ferdinand, and they could have been coin flips for the first team as well, to be honest.
Yeah, I couldn't get there with Ferdinand. I didn't think Ferdinand was when I did all the research, he wasn't in serious consideration for first or second team.
It's probably eye test more that pips him over the line for me then.
Yeah, I would probably agree that he was probably a better defender to watch than a Boateng, but by the same token, I did love watching Jerome Boateng defend at his peak. He was fantastic. But
Wait, was Ferdinand in your third team or no?
Yeah, he was in my third team. It was either him or Vidic, and he pipped out Vidic.
Okay.
So I guess I'll go over to left back, and this was one that I had a little bit differently when I first mapped it out. But when I did the deeper research, I had to flip them. So I had Jordi Alba, who was originally my second team left back, but I had to go for David Alaba as my second team left back because
it was a very good shout.
Again, like Philipp Lahm, I love the versatility. I love the intelligence to be that versatile, but something that he has over Philipp Lahm or has had over his career is the physicality to be able to play different positions as well. So Alaba in a lot of ways is almost a complete footballer. If you were trying to map out the perfect footballer in terms of the positions that aren't the forward positions, this guy might be the guy. Left-footed as well, which always helps. 10 league titles with Bayern Munich, 2 Champions League titles. The first one in 13 as an out-and-out left-back. The second one in 2020 as a centre-back. Goes on to win another Champions League title to take his tally up to 3. Obviously, last season with Real Madrid, adding as well a league title in a different country. So 2 top leagues he's got league titles in. Playing as a centre-back at Real Madrid again, love the versatility. Somewhat, I guess maybe somewhat not when we look at who's in the first team for me, but only one FIFA Pro World 11 selection in 2021. But yeah, on the deep dive, I just had to bump him above Jordi Alba. I love both of them, but eye test wise, it's close, but I'd probably go Alaba just for that versatility and physicality somewhat as well. And then, yeah, just a fantastic career, played in multiple positions, supremely intelligent footballer. I mean, what else can you say about him? Definitely second team for me.
That's a good shout. I did not have Alaba there. And I think the reason why I excluded him was... I don't know, like it was probably more because I was after a different type of left back. He wasn't really that sort of up and down left back because he did come, especially under Guardiola, he did tend to come into the midfield as well. And like you said, he's like a complete footballer. So he can play in the midfield, he can play centre back, he can play left back, he can play left mid. So left wing as well. And that's probably why I excluded him. So I went with a more traditional left back. And do you want to take a guess of who I went?
Is it Eric Abidal?
No, I went with one of his other French compatriots, Patrice Evra.
Oh, Patrice. A lot of United. Living back in the glory days of United here.
Well,
so you crushed the United fans before. Now you're building them up a little bit again.
Yeah, well, considering I shat on them, earlier in the episode, it's time to at least remind them of their glory days. But with Patrice Evra, he made that Champions League final with Monaco that they lost. Like it was that surprise run, the Porto Monaco final in 02-03, I believe it was. And that was a very, like, looking back at that Monaco squad, like, and they Monaco have actually done this a few times where, like, they create a team and then, like, the following season just gets decimated because a bunch of those players, they left, like, they went to, like, Barcelona, they went to Man United, they went to, like, all these other top teams, and they were just, and obviously the team broke apart, and then, like, you look back and you're like, holy crap, that is a talented team. Similar to that, although Ajax did win the Champions League in, I think it was 95, if I'm not mistaken. But, like, You look at that squad and, like, they all went on to have great careers, that team. Yeah. And similar to that Monaco squad from memory. But then at United, he won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Premier League as well. He was part of that three-peat team as well. So is that Yeah, 06, 07, 07, 08, 08, 09. I know, yeah, they didn't win 09, 010. But yeah, like he won that three-peat, won the Champions League with United as well. A boring final, in all honesty. And, it's obvious, and it has that Terry slip in there. And then he went to Juventus as well. He won 2 league titles there, although that was when Juventus won. Did they win like 10 in a row or something, or like 7 or 8 in a row? So it was when the
I didn't think they quite got to 10, but
yeah, but it was,
I think they got to 9 or something.
So it was basically when they were absolutely dominating. But like he made Premier League Team of the Year in 3 times. He was in the FIFA Pro 11 in 09 and UEFA Team of the Year in 09 as well. So a very decorated left back. He just doesn't have that international career, but if I'm not mistaken, he had some kind of fallout in 2010, and so he didn't end up going to the World Cup, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, very, very good and traditional left back for me, and that's why I picked him over Alaba.
Do you remember the drama of that World Cup where the French team were like protesting in the bus with Roman Domenech trying to like calm them down and stuff? It was madness. That France run in 2010 was just crazy. They love to do that, the French at a World Cup. Like a little self-implosion, just like 02.
Well, they have it in them. So I think it happens like once every generation.
Yeah, and then it's normally before or after they win a World Cup or something. Or normally after, or have a good run in the World Cup. So they'll give you good and then they'll give you bad.
I have a feeling that that might happen for this World Cup because of the Mbappe drama.
Honestly, the only team I can see stopping the French at this World Cup is the French.
Is themselves.
They are scary in every position, pretty much.
But also
many good players.
Yeah, but also like they're trying to refresh the squad by bringing in some young talent as well.
But they have so much of it. They have so much young talent.
Yeah, although it might also be a little bit of politics because, as we know, there are a lot of players of African descent who have like dual nationality who can play for France or because Evra was born in Senegal. Yeah, he was born in Senegal, so he could play for Senegal. So there are a lot of players that they can play for France or one of those African teams. So maybe it might be a thing of let's cap them now for France so that if they do end up being a talent, then they can't. They're locked in. So it could also be a little bit of politics there with a lot of the young talent that they're trying to cap right now, because like Saliba was capped not too long ago, like 2 or 3 months ago, and yeah, he had a great season.
Yeah, but he's a pretty good centre back.
Yeah, he had a great season. I think he won like the young player of the year for Ligue 1. So yeah, like he's a very good centre back. Not a surprise cap, but nonetheless, it still might. Anyway, we're getting off topic, but anyway, that's my left back choice. Deal with it.
Yeah, your left backs leaves me a little bit bamboozled. I'm interested to see who you have in the first team because
I think it's pretty obvious.
I already know
who I have in the first team.
It's already not the guy that I have in my first team, so I'm curious to see.
Okay.
Do you want to jump into your midfield?
I'm going to go my midfield. I'm just going to name my midfield 3. And
yeah, do it.
This one could have easily been my first team, but I guess my first team midfield 3 is, I guess, more of a dream midfield 3, or like I'd say more of a dream midfield 3 of like I would have loved to have seen this 3 play together. But with the 3 that I have in the team 2, it's the Spain midfield the Barca midfield of Busquets, Xavi, and Iniesta. That trio.
A small trio in the second team. All right.
Yeah, so I thought I'd keep them together, like instead of putting like one of them in the first team. And like I said, you could easily put this trio in the first team, like all 3, or you could put like 1 or 2 of them or one of them. And I went for, like I said, a bit of a dream team midfield in my team 1. But yeah, this one's pretty self-explanatory. Like it's probably the best midfield trio of potentially even ever as well. Just because of how well they worked together and the titles that they won both at Barcelona and Spain. Because don't forget Busquets, he wasn't there for that 08 Euro, but he was, if I'm not mistaken, he was starting every game for Spain in 2010. And then obviously for the Euros as well, he was a mainstay as well. And Xavi and Iniesta, they obviously locked in their positions in that midfield too. So I don't know how much I need to go into detail in regards to these players, but they're pretty obvious choices for either first or second team, considering their accomplishments and also eye test as well.
Well, I have two of them, and I think I already gave it away last week that I don't have Busquets in any team. But the other two I had to have, and the one that I have in the second team is Xavi. And then I have anchoring the midfield, but he can do so much more than this. But I have N'Golo Kante as the holding midfielder, and I have Toni Kroos as the other central midfielder. Kante pretty much won everything in the game already. EPL title with Leicester in 16, which for me almost counts as 3, because that's probably the most incredible. It might be the most incredible story in footballing history in terms of an underdog achievement. But it's definitely the one of our lifetime. To win a 38-game league with a team like Leicester City, who were battling relegation the season before, and for him to be as good as he was and secure that move to Chelsea, and then win the titles as soon as he gets to Chelsea, who, let's not forget, Chelsea the season before were shambolic defending their title under Mourinho. And then they get Antonio Conte in, which is obviously a big part in of himself. But then they also get N'Golo Kante in, and he comes in and brings everything you need to a midfield. He can do absolutely everything in a midfield. He's fantastic at holding and covering for people. He covers so much ground, but he's also a good technical footballer. He's not as good to watch as De Bruyne, but I argue on his day, he can nearly do as much as De Bruyne. Not in the same way, but in his own personal way, he can offer that from midfield as well. Maybe not quite as well in the tight areas, but in terms of driving the ball past people, putting in crosses, finding the right pass, keeping the moves tick over, I think he's fantastic at that, and it's somewhat an underrated. Well, I don't know if it's still underrated, but it always was an underrated part of his game, especially in his days at Leicester. Adds a Champions League title at Chelsea as well in 21. Had a Europa League title before that as well. French World Cup winner. I know he had to come off in that final, but was a huge part of that French World Cup winning team. Euro runner-up in 2016 and 2 FIFA Pro World 11s in 18 and 21. So, and for me, for my eye test, I just love watching him. Disappointed that he's injured. It looked like he had a hammy on the weekend, which is probably the criticism, I guess, you can have of him in later, especially later in the recent years. He's a little bit injury prone, and maybe Chelsea would have more league titles if he wasn't so injury prone, because that's the kind of effect I think he has on a team. Xavi had to be in either first or second team. Look, I say this just because I think he's rated so highly. For me, maybe just a touch overrated. But when I say that, that's because a lot of people have him as maybe the best midfielder of all time, or they like to say things like this. For me, it's not really close in terms of that, but his impact and his influence on the teams that he's played for, the great teams that he's played for in his career, is what gets him easily in the second team. Definitely had an argument for first team. 7 times La Liga champions, four times UCL champion, but that 06 one is a little bit hard. It's a half champion because I think he did his ACL in that season, and he only made 16 league appearances that season, and obviously didn't have a big part in the run-in for Barca winning that Champions League. Obviously not his fault, and obviously he would have been a starter, but the fact that he wasn't, and the fact that the guy who gets into the first team comes in and does the job and takes them to a Champions, or helps take him to a Champions League title, is maybe a minor ding. It's not his fault, obviously. Part of those great Spain teams, a key part of those great Spain teams in the 2 Euros in '08 and 2012 and the World Cup in 2010. Wins the Euro Player of the Tournament in '08 as well, and a 6-time FIFA Pro World 11 from '08 to 2013. So definitely had to be in either first or second team. What a great career for someone who maybe this is the reason I think he's a little overrated, is because I think he's a little limited. Obviously physically, which isn't his point, isn't his fault, but the intelligence and the way he could dictate a game with his footballing brain and his technique can't be understated. So definitely first or second team for me there.
Just quickly, because you said like he was a little bit limited in like I guess the physical aspect, and like you know how people have that argument of how a player would do in the Premier League, for instance, but then the counter argument is, well, he plays against Premier League teams in the Champions League, and you know he's beaten Premier League teams in the Champions League and done very well against Premier League teams and the top Premier League teams. However, he doesn't get to play against those sort of the Crystal Palaces, the Newcastles, that are all the Stokes of if we go back 10 years, where they're very hard. They're very physical. They press onto you and they get stuck into you as well. Whereas the other teams like a Chelsea, United, they seem to they let you, and Arsenal and Liverpool, they let you play a little bit more. They don't necessarily hustle you like those mid-table, lower table teams would. So, do you think he would have had the same sort of success had he went to, for instance, the Premier League, considering he has the intelligence? Because we also saw David Silva absolutely thrive in the Premier League.
Yeah, he would be an unbelievable player in the Premier League, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he would have quite the same impact for much the reasons you mentioned, just because Champions League ties and league football for me are completely different things. Champions League ties, you can somewhat see the tension and the intensity and the attention to detail in terms of tactical setup, which makes the game inherently a little bit more tactical, which obviously suits a player like that. And also, he's playing in the Barcelona system, which has unbelievable attacking players in front of him who know how to occupy defenses so that maybe the Premier League teams can't make the game as vertical and as chaotic as they might do in the league. But don't get me wrong, if he went to a Chelsea or if he went to a United, he would have been sensational. Would he have racked up all those accomplishments? Maybe if the Spain team was still as good as they were, he'd probably still be in exactly the same spot for me in a second team. So while maybe he can't have the same impact in the Premier League, I still think he would have been fantastic for what you say, that intelligence and that knowing how to play in a midfield and support people and set people up. And he did score his share of goals, considering he was more a deep-lying playmaker as well. So very much in the Paul Scholes mould. I think if you wanted to look at how someone like that has an influence in the Premier League, I'd say those two are nearly carbon copies of each other, really, for me.
Yeah, that'd be a fair comparison. Who's your front three then? Or do you want to go one by one?
I could go through my whole front three.
All right. Let's see.
In fact, we'll go one for one. I'll start.
All right. I wonder if we're going to have the same players, or at least one or two of the same players. So let's go.
Okay. I'll just do. I'll do my right winger, and then you give me your right winger.
All right.
So at right wing, I had Iron Robin.
We great minds think alike.
There you go. It's Robin. So do you want to do the Robin or shall I?
You seem to like you. Like I said, I'm going with a lot of these picks. I'm not necessarily going too heavy on the achievements. I'm going and like because you seem to have deep dived into the achievements.
Yeah.
I'm going more off of eye test and also from memory of how they played and like obviously I'm factoring in achievements as well, but I think I'm factoring eye test more than achievements for some of these picks. So if you want to list off achievements, go ahead. But for eye test, probably one of the most frightening right wingers of the last like 15, 20 years. And like with him, he was I want to say like an early Salah or like maybe and where like he'd
Nicer to watch than Salah though
huh
for me. Nicer to watch than
yeah
Salah
a
for
little
me.
bit more elegant. Salah seems a little bit
Yeah.
more raw, but like he's cutting in onto his left foot, and he's gonna go for the far post. Like he's just gonna try curl it towards the far post. And as a defender and a goalkeeper, it's coming. You just know it, and you still can't stop him. Like
Can't stop it.
he was that incredible, and like he mastered that technique. Like he like how they say like you need like practice something 10,000 hours to master it. Like this guy,
Yeah,
like
he's done 20,000 on that.
like 100,000 hours. Like I'm not sure whether 100,000 hours, how many days or years that equals. But like, dude, like this. Yeah, probably like if you want to learn one technique from like one player, like you learn the cut in from Robin, and that's I think that's like that says enough. But he didn't just have that. Like he had a lot more to his game as well. But considering like that was I guess what he was known for, like that it makes him, it gives him like that extra little bit of that special something. But an absolutely incredible player to watch, and it's a shame that we don't have we have players that are, I guess, similar to him but not as elegant. But yeah, I'll let you list off his achievements.
Well, yeah, just to add to that, you also had the young Robin at Chelsea
Yeah.
in particular, where he would maybe sometimes even play left wing. So he'd be running down the line and he'd just be outpacing people to get a finish away, which was always exciting to see. It was so quick as well. And probably a forgotten time of his career as well was his little stint at Real Madrid before he went to Bayern. But I remember I think I had a sort of 6 to 8 week holiday in England around the Christmas time of that 07-08 season. And I remember watching him and just thinking, wow, this guy is special. I remember thinking he was a good player at Chelsea, obviously. But when he went to Real, I sort of really sat up and took notice of just how good he was. He wins a league title there to go along with his 2 league titles in England in 05 and 06 for those historically great Chelsea teams. And then at Bayern, obviously 8 league titles once he gets there. Champions League title in 2013, where for me he was the main man. It was him and Ribery. And remember there was all that partnership sort of stuff about those two playing together. For the Dutch national side, has a 2010 World Cup runner-up and a third place in 14, which is pretty impressive to be a runner-up and then third place in consecutive World Cups. We all know that the Dutch haven't been able to break through in that tournament. And then FIFA Pro World 11 in 2014 and the Footballer of the Year in Germany in 2010. So fantastic career, fantastic footballer. For me, a no-brainer on that right wing, being part of so many great teams. I already mentioned that Chelsea team in 05 and 06 under Mourinho, but also being part of those great Heinkes team for Bayern in 2012, 2013, and then obviously the Guardiola teams after that, where he somewhat took his game to the next level and was really fantastic for Guardiola, even though I think there was trepidation about how those two would work together when Guardiola came in. But Robin, for me, took his game to the next level under Guardiola, and yeah, just no-brainer for second team for me.
Yeah. I think apparently he's still playing, but he's playing like Dutch fourth or fifth division, just on like just Sunday league or something, and like he just bikes to training and to matches and stuff. Just living a nice casual life, and it like to hear something like that. Like this guy was like, one of the world's best in his position, earning millions of dollars, and then like he just settles down back in his home country and just playing local league football, just not just riding a bike around town. Like it just adds to the story of the man, I guess.
Just loves the game.
Yeah, it's great to hear, and like, I think he's only like 38 or something. So it's he still has a couple of years left on him.
So who do you have on your left wing?
I got his partner in crime, Robbery.
Robbery,
as they were commonly referred to as. So Frank Ribery. Very similar achievements as Robin, but like obviously Ribery was at Bayern before then. I think he was also part of that 06 France team that made it to the World Cup final.
He was.
I think he wasn't a starter if memory serves correct, but he was like the 12th man or the 13th man, so he would always be like one of the first two to come on off the bench, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I remember he played a lot in that World Cup. He might have been a starter.
I can't remember if he might have started a couple of games, but so he was sort of like a starter or the 12th man from memory.
Well, he started the final.
Okay, so maybe he already did break through into the team then.
Yeah, he was a revelation at that tournament.
Yeah, but was there? He was part of that falling out in 2010, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he was the main part.
Yeah, and considering that was when he was like at his peak, because I think Bayern made the final of the Champions League.
Yeah,
then
they did in 2010.
Yeah,
losing to Inter.
Yeah. And it's like looking back at it, it's a shame because I think that France squad was actually like really good, and it's what you said earlier. The only team that can beat France is generally France. So yeah, like an absolute joy to watch as a player. Very similar, I guess. He didn't have that cut in and shoot with his right. I think he'd generally take it more down the line and then cross, but yeah,
more unpredictable than Robin.
Yeah, more unpredictable.
More of a street footballer. That was the joy to watch him. This guy, you could tell he'd been playing on the streets in his upbringing. Yeah, and he sort of took that onto the pitch.
Yeah, and I think even one season he was a bit unlucky not to win the Ballon d'Or. I think it might have been on that Heinkes season. I think he might have. I'm not sure whether he missed out on the top three or whether he finished second to Messi, but yeah, like I guess that we can't really look too much into Ballon d'Ors, but considering they're probably a little bit politicized as well.
It's still the top individual achievement.
Yeah,
so
but even
it's
so,
still a big one.
Yeah, but probably one of the best wingers of, I guess, the past 15, 20 years with him.
Yeah, and I agree with that, but my problem is it's not really breaking the rules, but I somewhat shoehorn the player that I have at right wing into the team. And I have no doubt that left wing. I have no doubt that he could easily play this position because he showed his versatility in his time at Inter under Mourinho, but I had Samuel Eto'o as my left winger.
Wait. So what's your formation then? Because you don't have Ribery.
I don't have Ribery.
Oh, I thought you had Ribery.
Instead of Ribery. Nah.
Okay.
Nah.
I thought you had him.
I went for Eto'o over Ribery, and I went for that because of just the fact that he showed that he could do it at multiple clubs. He's one of only a handful of players to win Champions League titles at two different clubs. He won 2 at Barca in 06 and 09 and 1 at Inter in 2010. And we know he sort of, like I'm theorising about Mane going to Bayern, he definitely held the grudge that Guardiola and Barca got rid of him in 09. And then he had not the last laugh, but he had the first laugh in terms of winning that treble under Mourinho at Inter. It wasn't obviously his most prolific season as a goal scorer, but that's because that season Mourinho asked him to almost play as a right wing back. And he still did the job, and his work rate was fantastic as a player. You think of the key goals that he scored in the 06 and 09 Champions League finals, scoring the first goal in both of those games for Barca. So
No, I think he scored the second goal in the first.
did he score the winner in 06?
I think.
Yeah, I couldn't remember.
I think Belletti
I thought
scored
it was
the first.
I thought it was Belletti who scored the second, but I might be wrong on that. But either way, either one of those goals is important. Trailing 1-0 to Arsenal, so obviously showed that he rises to the big occasion. Again, a player with so much character that obviously Guardiola didn't really want to work with, and that's one of the players where you start to get that narrative about Guardiola. But I just love watching this guy. Could score goals in a variety of ways, was so switched on in the box with his movements, but then obviously showed a different side to him in going to Inter and doing that more defensive job as a right winger / right wing back. And then finally, on the individual level, 2 African Players of the Year in 05 and 2010, and 2 FIFA Pro World 11s in 05 and 6. So I had to get him in there because I just thought, in terms of what he gave a team from the front, he somewhat gave you everything. He gave you goals, he gave you important goals, he gave you physicality, he could press from the front, and he gave you that character and that winning mentality, which I just love to see in players.
Definitely a very good pick. I had him in my mind, but I had him in my mind as a centre forward. But ultimately, I didn't pick him. So, who was your striker then from your front three?
My striker is Robert Lewandowski.
You went for a more modern one.
Yeah. Huh. I mean, his goal scoring record is incredible. Yeah. He's an out and out striker. So he definitely has to be playing as a striker, no doubt. But just what he did, even in his Dortmund days, and then transferring it to Bayern, and now it's interesting to see what he'll do at Barca. But obviously, those 2 league titles for Dortmund in 2011 and 12, where he broke into the scene, really impressive feats. Obviously, given Bayern's, I guess they weren't dominating, not nearly to the same level that they do nowadays, but they're still always the team to beat in Germany, and for Dortmund to overcome that obstacle and for him to be such a main part of that counts for a lot. Champions League runner-up in 2013, that absolutely historic performance in the semi-finals against Mourinho and Ronaldo's Real Madrid, where he scored 4 goals in the first leg of that semi-final tie, which is just incredible to think. 8 times league champion after the move to Bayern, a Champions League title in 2020, should have a Ballon d'Or, but for some reason they never gave it out that season, but that was his Ballon d'Or all the way. He was absolutely fantastic that season, probably the main part of why Bayern won that Champions League title. You just have to look at the way he's built to know that he's the model professional. The hunger he has to score goals, you just have to look at the numbers. And then on the individual level, he's won 2 European Golden Shoes in 21 and 22, Footballer of the Year in Germany in 20 and 21, and FIFA Pro World 11s in 2020 and 2021. So an absolute machine up front, a goal-scoring machine, is the only real guy in the recent years who numbers-wise has challenged Messi and Ronaldo. So for me to be close to that level, you had to make one of the teams, and for me, it was second team striker. So I'm interested to hear who you have.
Well, I went for one that will appease the United fans. So who do you think I went with?
Is it Wayne?
Who?
Wayne Rooney?
Yep, went with Wayne Rodney.
Rodney. I couldn't get him there. I couldn't.
I think just because isn't he United's all-time leading goal scorer, and he's
and the second top goal scorer in Premier League history as well.
And I think he's the I think he's still the leading goal scorer for England, but only by like a 2 or 3 goals. So like Kane should overtake him. If unless Kane's already overtaken him. But even if he's second, or let's say Kane has overtaken him or will overtake him, second all-time leading goal scorer for England, leading goal scorer for United, and second all-time leading goal scorer in the Premier League as well. And just the fact that he's shown that he can play anywhere across that front three during his time with Ronaldo, Tevez, and obviously himself, and then like Berbatov as well would come into that fold. So he can he can also drop into the midfield as well, which he did later into his career. But he, you know how you said Alaba is like a complete footballer. I think Rooney as well falls into that mold of like being a complete footballer, because like there's also stories of him, in training playing as a centre back and stuff, and and taking the ball and just like absolutely like dominating the players around him. And yeah, I think if not for the players of his generation, like the Messis, the Ronaldos, he probably would have gone into the first team.
Yeah, I couldn't even get him into the third team because I thought Benzema really corrected him in a lot of ways. And my reasoning was, so if you look at Wayne Rooney and all his major accomplishments in his career, he was never the main man for any of them, which is crazy to say. And it's not his fault, because if you look at Rooney's career and you look at the honours compared to like the statistics, you see from that 07, 08, 09, that three-peat, obviously Cristiano Ronaldo is the main man of the strikers, at least. He's the guy who gets the Ballon d'Or in 08, and he's the guy. He is the guy. It's Cristiano Ronaldo. I know it's young Cristiano, but it's still him who's scoring the most goals every season. So Rooney, for those reasons that you say, his adaptability to be able to play off a guy like that is fantastic. And then Ronaldo leaves, and in 09-10, Rooney, I think, scores high 20s in the goals, but he isn't able to. They aren't able to win the league because Ancelotti's Chelsea do, with Drogba and Lampard leading the way. That was a fantastic team, but he's the main man that season, and they can't win it. And then Ferguson brings in Berbatov, and they regain the title. They win it again. Berbatov scores over 20 goals in the league, and it's good enough that United win the league. And then the season after, Rooney has, I think, his best season goal scoring wise, high 20s again, but they're pipped to the title by Man City. So, and then Van Persie comes in, and Man United win the league again. So it was just interesting for me, and it was a little ding, maybe not through any fault of his own. Definitely 2012, like, what can you do? They win it on pretty much the last kick of the season with Aguero. So in another parallel universe, his 20-odd goals was enough for United to win the league. But the fact that he was never the main guy in the front three for any of United's major honours, it's not his fault, like I said, because he did have 2 outstanding seasons in there, but it was somewhat a ding when we're talking about first and second and third team of the last 20 years. So, and he was the one who I was shocked, who I didn't have in any 3 of the teams, but in looking at it and researching it and doing all that, I couldn't get there with him, because I thought the fact that Benzema he did all that for that Real Madrid team while they were winning arguably a more important prize in the Champions League. For me, it's not even arguable. And then he was the main man last season. So I couldn't bump out Benzema for a Rooney in any 3 of those teams.
No, that's fair reasoning, but I still...
An eye test, which you go on. Wayne Rooney... Yeah, Wayne Rooney is right up there because, like you say, he's a complete footballer. Probably even more so than Alaba, just because he can play in the front three and still be devastating in terms of goals and assists. And we've never seen Alaba do that. Obviously, we haven't seen Rooney play in defence, but I could honestly have imagined Rooney in his peak playing as a right back or a central midfielder. So maybe not a centre back, but those positions I could probably see him doing.
He'd probably do a better job than Martinez.
Oh, hell yeah.
They're around the same height, aren't they?
I'm surprised you didn't pick Maguire on that
Or put him in the front line.
one.
But okay, so we've gone through our. Oh, what about the manager? Who do you have as the manager?
I got Guardiola.
You're Guardiola. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if your first team manager is who I have for my second team. Then I've gone with.
Who is it then?
I've gone with Ancelotti.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Ancelotti for me. It has to be first team manager, especially after what he did last season.
Yeah, like he's definitely he's definitely a shout. Like, but I just think the legacy that Guardiola has created and will continue to create and will leave behind, is more influential on football than Ancelotti.
Yeah, and I almost resent that about what Guardiola's done. I hate that everyone wants to be Guardiola now, and that sort of pisses me off somewhat.
Even Klopp wants to be Guardiola.
No, I think they want to be each other. They steal ideas from each other.
Yeah.
I think this City counter press that is so exceptional. I think Guardiola took a lot of notes from Klopp and what his Liverpool teams were doing. To be fair,
Oh yeah, you know how like we talk about like, and this is sort of like from basketball as well. Like you know how we talk about like dream partnerships, like imagine, for instance, like imagine if like peak Jordan and peak LeBron played, like how they would like together, how they would play with each other, or like I think we even in the 92 Olympics, like we saw the dream team, so we saw a lot of these combinations played together, even though some of the players like a Larry Bird and a Magic Johnson were toward the end of their careers, but like we saw them play with like Jordan and Pippen and stuff like that. So, and like, you know, and now we say like, oh, imagine how Ronaldo and Messi would play together. Maybe not now, considering they're at the end of their careers, but how they would have played maybe together maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago. We did see in the mid-2000s the Ronaldinho and Henry at Barca. Like, they were both at the peak of their powers and considered the best players in the world back then.
they were a little bit past.
Huh?
A little bit past the peak. I thought both of them were a little bit past their peak by the time they played together. Henry's peak was like 03, 04, 02, 03, around that time, and Ronaldinho was
05, 06.
04, 05 and 05, 06, yeah.
But still, like we still got to see it,
Yeah.
even though, and I think there's another basketball one from the Lakers in the 2000s.
When they added Karl Malone and Gary Payton to Kobe and Shaq, yeah.
So
and that one didn't work out well at all.
Yeah. So the point that I'm getting to is, imagine Klopp and Guardiola managing a team together. Do you reckon that would be frightening, or do you reckon they could work together? How would that work as like them being a 1 and 2?
No.
Like, do you reckon that could work or no?
No, managers at that level have way too big egos to be a number 2 or even co-manage with someone else. It has to be all their way. There's no way, especially if they're the guys that they are now. Maybe if like someone's already established and the other one's working their way up through the ranks.
Yeah, but
maybe like a Mourinho under Bobby Robson or something like that.
Yeah, but you get what I'm saying, though. Yeah, like to like bring.
Yeah,
it's
hard to imagine.
We talk about bringing 2 players together at the peak of their powers and like how frightening it would be, or 3 players or 4 players. Like for instance, Galacticos at Real Madrid. Like, why can't we do that with managers? Like, just put 2 managers together, have them working day in, day out. Like you'd fantasize, like they could fantasize about the tactics that they could employ and like feed off each other. Like right now they feed off each other, but they don't work off each other. Like they can't discuss like together. Like they can just see what the other one is doing in hindsight.
That would, if it was an ideal world and they could get their egos out of the way, that would be very interesting to see what kind of team they come up with. To be fair, I think these City and Liverpool teams play about as much like each other as I can remember any rivals playing like each other. I think they take so many ideas off each other, these two managers, and the main philosophy is just the intensity that both the teams play at.
Yeah.
No doubt for me, Guardiola has more range in his tactical, his sort of ways that he can set up a team, but maybe Klopp has more in the motivational sort of factor, but there's not much between either of them. That's for sure.
Well, one of the other dream teams that I did forget to mention was a tennis one, Federer and Nadal playing doubles. Like, we got to see that, I think, in exhibition matches, but never at a tournament. So, it would. I reckon that'd be interesting. Guardiola and Pep.
No doubt.
And not just for like a one-off exhibition match, because you don't get to see, like, I'd love to see them working over a season long, like with a team, and just seeing what they can come up with. If they can end up coming up with anything new, like, because obviously the players that they have at their disposal would influence what they can do as well. So interesting concept, I reckon. Just off the. Grabbed out of thin air. Now, just quickly, let's just go over our second team. So I have Ancelotti as my manager, Casillas as my goalkeeper, Lam as my right back, Puyol and Ferdinand as my centre back partnership, Patrice Evra as my left back, Busquets, Xavi and Iniesta as my midfield three, and Robin, Rooney and Ribery as my front three.
And I have Guardiola as manager, Casillas as the goalkeeper, Dani Alves at right back, John Terry and Jerome Boateng, the centre-back partnership, David Alaba at left back, Ian Robin at right wing, Xavi, Kante and Kroos as the three midfielders, Samuel Eto'o on the left wing, and Robert Lewandowski as the striker.
Solid team two. I'm actually looking forward to team three to see where we overlap and where we don't, because my team three is a little bit of a dream team as well, I think, because like, you know how I mentioned Busquets, Xavi and Iniesta, like, we've already seen how that partnership works, so it'd be interesting how my midfield three partnership would work for my team one. But yeah, I'm interested who you have as your left back for team one as well.
As am I.
But I have a feeling I know who it is, and I have a feeling it's not the same one that I have as well.
Oh no, it definitely isn't the same one as you.
Yeah, because I think you've name dropped a couple of times as well. So yeah, let's we'll pick this up. Maybe not for the review show, because they tend to go a little bit like this. Even this one. We said we'd keep it short, and we only really did a review of one team, and we've been doing the team two for over an hour now. But yeah, like, maybe not for the review show that we do on the Monday or the Tuesday. Maybe for the next preview show, depending on what games there are for next weekend, we might do something similar where we review one game. Well, yeah, preview one game, and then do our team one. But yeah, for this week,
to you. Huh? Just know that we will get the first team to you.
Yes,
in somewhat a timely manner.
Definitely,
but we can't guarantee.
Yeah. What was the thing that you said? Like last time, we hold the right to change our opinion or something like that.
When facts change, opinions change.
Yeah. So when scheduling changes, then teams of the year change and whatnot. So yeah, look, we'll be back with another show next week. Hopefully, we are right in all of our predictions that we gave at the beginning of the show. I do find it enjoyable when Liverpool draw or lose or don't get the result. I do find it enjoyable, but at the same time, considering what's going on at United, I think this weekend I will be a Liverpool fan, just because United have had it so good for the last, not 10 years, but like besides the 10 years, they had it so good from like the the start of the 90s up until pretty much mid 2010s, because Fergie left in 2014. So they had it good for 25 years, and it is a little bit fun seeing what they're going through, considering the amount of shit that they gave Arsenal as well. Once Wenger was like towards the tail end of his career, and we weren't getting the results that we were getting, and now that we're on a better trajectory than what they are. So yeah, let's hope everything goes according to plan on the weekend.
So after getting the United fans back on side with your second team, you get them straight offside with that.
Oh well, it's swings and roundabouts.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it for today's show. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.